Historical city builders seem to be the big talking point of recent years. Ancient cities, manor lords, farthest frontier, and now land of the Vikings. Games that often champion that small settlement survival mechanics that was first made popular by Banished. Yet, with all the excitement of the ever nearer manor lords on the horizon, other games of the same space are often overlooked. Land of the Vikings is, well, a Viking colony simulation. As a Jarl leading his people from a small scrummage of houses into a thriving Scandinavian town. With raids, harsh conditions, and your own sanity to comply with, it's attempting to find that middle ground of fun, yet hardcore building. Okay, we get it. PR speak out the way. Is the game actually good? That's what you're here for. The game came out a couple weeks ago now. Starting off, you're going to find many basic mechanics and UI elements coming back from other titles of a similar nature. Want to cut down some trees? Click the chop wood button and highlight the area you want your colonists to approach. They will automatically then go and gather wood. The same can be done with pretty much any resource, from rock to stone. The game has pretty comprehensive and an easy to follow tutorial system, taking you through the mechanics that you'll probably be very familiar with if you're a fan of the genre. Building stores for resources and food, setting up hunting lodges and forager huts, and of course using the tried and tested method of assigning villagers to said jobs. But there are a few nice unique touches that Land of the Viking does that many city builders tend to overlook. For one, when you go to assign a worker to a post, it will give you an indication of what skills that job will need. Things like speed, strength, intelligence, so on and so forth. You can then assign the right worker for that job, as every villager or colonist has their own set attributes and skills. It's a nice little touch on the micromanagement side. In normal city builders, you just click hire worker and a random colonist will do that job, completely negating any sort of strategy with who or where you assign a person to work. It especially means that in the early game, when settlers are limited, there's a bit of a weighing up method of deciding what's more important. That guy that has a lot of power, should he really be put on foraging if his use at carpentry would be much more founded? On the surface, I think this mechanic is pretty good, and it can be a bit of an asset to the title, adding more of a unique spin. However, I can imagine that later on, where you have way more settlers, that having to optimize the right skills for the right job could get unnecessarily long and tedious if you really want to min-max your colony. Another unique addition is the fact of decorations. These can be anything from lamps to fences, or more interestingly, storage crates and barrels. They can be placed in the vicinity of a building and can interact with them. For example, placing a barrel or a storage crate next to a market gives a market even more storage to be able to hold things. Almost modular buildings, if you will, which I think is quite a nice touch. Even extra buffs aside, being able to get down and dirty, to micromanage your town and build it exactly how you want it is kind of nice. Being able to put down certain fences and torches to give it a really nice aesthetic. You see, normally in a city builder, you'll put down a house that's pre-built and pre-modeled, and the settlers sort of do everything. You know, if they have a garden, they'll do it themselves. You can't really decide if they do or do not. But this mechanic is good if you're into that Planet Coaster style of customization, and it can be great for making some nice looking towns that feel unique to your playthrough. However, if that's not your style of play, if you're not into placing every single block or fence, your settlement is going to look pretty bland, since there isn't an alternative here. Heading into later game is where the title really starts to shine somewhat. As a warning, this game is still in early access at the moment, so the late game is a little limited, but the potential really starts to show. You can start to build farmlands, windmills to provide for your bigger settlements, even building docks to fish, or trading vessels to work with other settlements in the land, sending and bringing in other ships for resources that you might not have yourself. You can even start to build barracks or training grounds to make sure you have a defense force of strong warriors in case any enemy raids should happen, or go on the offensive, send out a raiding force yourself. Currently there isn't anything in terms of actual battle mechanics. It's more of, look, let's send this raiding force, and a few days later they'll come back hopefully with some resources, but it's still quite a nice mechanic. Most city builders don't really even focus on anything other than building and keeping your people alive, let alone going out and doing raiding missions. Of course, it's nothing like the Manor Lord style of RTS battle, but it's still a unique touch. But as mentioned, this game is early access, and it definitely starts to show in some areas. It feels very bare bones. It's $17.99 and that's in Great British pounds. It's not exactly an unfair price, but I would like to see a little bit more, especially in terms of fleshing things out, unique ideas that bring the city builder to life. It does what a lot of other city builders do. There are some cool things that are a little bit different, however, the core does feel very much cut from the same cloth as, well, what we've seen before, yet not nearly as polished. Of course, early access is a factor to that, but it still feels incredibly clunky for even that. Graphically, it's pretty damn poor. It is very dark, and with some of the beautiful city builders that we've got coming in the future, Land of the Vikings really falls behind in terms of texture detail, shadows, and lighting. It obviously isn't the strongest suit of the developers. UI as well looks kind of basic and almost placeholder, once again feeling very much like a work in progress. Other things like this, mostly around the polish, make it very clear that you're not buying a full game here. You're supporting a development team and trying to get their project into the world rather than actually buying a fully fledged game. So where does Land of the Vikings go now? Well, it's got a lot of competition. City builders are kind of all the rage right now, especially in the historical field. Manor Lords is the big talker coming up, and as a one-man development team, there's a lot of competition to get your way to the top. I think Land of the Vikings does have a place with its unique time period and things like micromanaging in terms of decorations and of course the skills and attributes of each of your colonists. However, there is a fight to do. There's still a lot of work to be done, and I still think that there's a ways to go before Land of the Vikings is really anything on the table of city builders when we put it up there with the likes of Manor Lords or Banished. But I'm going to be following it every step of the way because Land of the Vikings is finally here. And yeah, it is pretty good.
Time, Howl Let Loose have released what's coming next in terms of game updates. Of course, more recently we got Update 12, which added in some beautiful things, including new maps, new weapons, and, well, new vehicles. But Update 13 is set to be even bigger. So without further ado, let's jump straight into it. First of all, we're going to be getting Flames, Frost, and more. An interesting winter update with a few hot spicy options as well. Coming in is the T-70, a new Soviet light tank. It's not quite as armoured as the T-34, but definitely better than its predecessor, the T-60, and with a better gun. The T-70 was used mainly as a reconnaissance vehicle. However, if driven with skill, it was able to take out bigger rivals. Unfortunately, it is going to be a lighter tank, so it will probably be a massive target on the battlefield, taken out in one or two shots depending on where you hit it and with what gun. We have actually seen a few screenshots of the T-70 in action, and it does look pretty cool. I really love the design on this, and I'm really